The market had its first red day in the past 6 days, roughly, and we've just been on this complete bullish trend heading into this election. What's going on, everybody? Hopefully you're doing absolutely well. My name is Dr. B. I'm a holistic life and business coach and strategist for entrepreneurs. I'm also an investor and options trader, which is why I'm here talking to you today. You can check out my page as well here on YouTube and just see all the things from life and business and credit and now trading to develop you into the holistic thought leader that I believe everyone has within them. If you're here for that, awesome. But let's get down to the value today. What is going on? There's this push and pull, this fight, this battle at the top of the markets heading into this election. It's amazing to see what the market has produced. I talked about yesterday NVIDIA, which produced all-time highs today, bouncing above and holding above that 140 mark. Now, I'll be transparent. I did try to short it a little bit as it was getting rejected with the market today, and it was just too bullish, too strong. But our community won today by taking SPY, QQQ, and even trading Amazon puts in a really nice range today. So there's always money made in the markets, whether it's a bullish run, you can play call options, or whether we are pulling back and you can ride the wave down for put options. Okay. So go listen to the video talking about intro to options, the full beginner's guide. Just recorded that for your listening pleasure if you need to understand the lingo and how to really interpret this economy. All right. So without further ado, let's jump into it today. If you enjoy this video, could you please give me a like if in the middle of the video or you start to hear things that you really enjoy and it's making sense, you like my teaching style, I would greatly appreciate maybe a nice comment down below, or if you have a difference of opinion, you see something different, put that down below in the comments too so I can improve and make new videos to make sure this channel is in the right trajectory. All right. That being said, let's jump into the charts where we always make the money we can make and decipher decisions, which is our technical analysis. Our fundamental analysis, as a reminder, is our news data, manipulative data that you might see, our financials, things of that nature from companies. Okay. So you can see here that on the daily chart, okay, we had a doji candle. Now, I don't want to get into the candle styles, but it looks like a cross where there was a little bit of indecision, but it did end up closing red for the day. All right. So when you see a candle like this and there's a little body like that, that tells us that there's some indecision in that particular like range bound that we're in. You can see here that I already have the range set for SPY more specifically, where we are between 586 roughly. Okay, 585.50 and 579. Okay, so about a $6 range that we're up, down, up, down, up until that range decides to break. Okay, now if I were a person that were to look at this chart and just say which direction, who has control, technically bulls still have control because we're making higher lows. This low is higher, excuse me, this low is higher than this low, right? This low is higher than this low, and then you kind of can see the trend line. If I were to draw it here for anyone that just can't see it yet, we're still forming, right? Now, something interesting here that's happening is we're starting to, if I were to draw a true trend line here, we're starting to break trend just slightly. It's not drastic, but if you look at this trend line from here, we're grinding, making higher, and then we start to break right here, right? That is a little bit of a signal that can the bears take over slightly in the short term, and a big move is coming where we do get that pullback potentially, but there's too much speculation around a lot of earnings that are coming up, right? With Tesla earnings, with a lot of the tech stocks coming next week, right? So I personally don't believe a big move is coming in one direction or the next until a lot of these earnings report and it gives us a sentiment. So until then, we're just respecting the range, trading the range, and or leaving the range alone. All right. So anytime that we're range bound, that signals that a big move is coming one direction or the next. We're just waiting for which direction it wants to go. All right. So there is SPY. Let me jump on the futures for my people that like to look at futures. Okay. The ES, okay, which are S&P futures. And you can kind of see a little bit here where we're starting this week off red. Okay. So we could consider this right around 59. if we were to do the body, 5912, or really just 5900 if we want to round it into that psychological level, right? It's struggling just a little bit around 5900, and we closed the day below 5900, that psychological level on the ES futures. All right. So that is a signal that, okay, we're starting the week off. Bears may have a little bit more control right now, but does this continue? We've been faked out before, right? We could get another bounce and then continue higher, right? Which is still wild to think about, but we can't rule it out. It is an election year and we're still bullish. Okay. So how do you trade this? How do you play this? I would say for my advanced folks or intermediate folks that are in other trading groups or trade on their own or whatnot, my perspective on this is that if we continue to hold below this 5,900 on the ES futures and we start to close lower lows and lower highs and start changing this direction, you can try some puts and scalps on the way down. But until really, in my opinion, we break below 577 is really where we're going to start seeing that downtrend come. So 577 on SPY, mark that on your charts. 577 on SPY is really when you're going to start seeing that pickup. And if I were to raise it just a little bit, it's below this previous low right here and this candle close up here. So right at 570, I would say 577.90, 577.80. Okay, I'm just giving a round even number if you want to put it to 577.50. If we see it below 577.50 and it starts to turn this into a rejection zone, right, then we can confidently say that, hey, bears have taken over and we're coming back down to 575 and then 573 if we have that break of 575, which is going to be a massive break if that happens. Okay, but until then, SPY wants ultimately, based on Tom Lee and based on other analysts, SPY, SPX, 6,000, 595, 600 on SPY. So you're talking about potentially after the election, another 20-point move, which is not out of the question. Okay, it's just where does the break happen and where does our base, our support, where can we find entries on this if we're looking to trade the overall market? All right, so QQQ. Here's a sentiment on QQQ. I like QQQ's chart just because we have tech earnings coming up and it's still forming really good candles, right? Bullish candles, obviously, with tech building into their earnings. So Tesla performs well. If Google, Amazon, NVIDIA coming in November, things of that nature, then yeah, I could definitely see QQQ taking out this 503 and trending to 510 plus. Right? It's just where is the big base? Are we going to pull back to this 587 again? Right? Or are we going to continue to hold this 590, 591? So I'm telling my clients and community members that 590 to 591 is your support right now. You can trade it to 496. If you break 496 and above, right? 497, if you want to round it to a psychological level, 497, we're trending back up to these highs of 498. And obviously, if we break above this 498.83, we're taking off to 500 plus. Okay. So trade the levels. You can clearly see here where sellers are present right now, about 496. Buyers are present about 491. Okay. So this range right here is fairly nice and we're trending upwards. We closed pretty strong today. Okay. Primarily because of NVIDIA. All right. So IWM was fairly weak. The Russell was fairly weak today, right off open. Okay, you kind of see this candle just came right off open with those small caps, getting a little bit weak, but still forming higher lows. I mean, it's just, we're weak, but we haven't really broken trend yet. You can see there, higher low, higher low, higher low. So ultimately, 219, 220 is your support on IWM, and it's sitting right on this 4-hour 20 moving average. You can see right there that the 20 moving average on a daily is sitting right at 220. So I think this is a decent setup if the small caps, the Russell, can hold up, and for some reason we get a bounce and go higher again if that 219 holds up. Now, if we break underneath 220, then yeah, we're coming back to 215. And then if we get weak for whatever reason, we do have some gaps below and the trend would break. My final level is 210 to 212 on IWM. Okay, final level of support. All right. Let's talk about some honorable mentions. I made the video on it yesterday, so I'm not going to go over it exactly, which is NVIDIA, just absolutely monstrous. Just this is just monstrous. I'm not trying to stand in front of this monster. I respected this level. We were sitting in resistance, right? But today had to stop out. We were profitable. Some of my clients were profitable on this NVIDIA put trade. It was strong off open. It did a break and retest, right? And the market was fairly weak. So I was looking for it to retest back underneath with this gap here, right? But it's just too strong, right? It held up that 140. And that's when most of my clients exited right here to right here. And we were looking for a little bit more continuation on that NVIDIA put trade, but held up 140, and that's when it was done for, right? Started to build liquidity right here. 1, 2, 3. Couldn't get a cleaner bull flag than that right there, and consolidated and then just started to build, right? So once the bulls had control, it was over. It was over. Now, where is it going? 145, 150, and then it's got some price target upgrades to where, you know, if they kill their earnings, I mean, this thing could be 170, 180 plus. So please, NVIDIA, give us another opportunity to buy some more shares before you take off, man. Golly. But hey, it's beautiful. It is what it is. They're doing the right thing. They're building the company the right way. Got an awesome CEO. Can't do anything about that. So ride the wave. Every pullback is a long right now. I would not necessarily try to short this. You can potentially if the market gets weak, but there's some gaps below, but you got to break back below 140 and then close the day, in my opinion, below 140. Somehow it gives back another 4% that it gained today. I don't see that happening right now, personally, leading up into its earnings. So earnings are not until the 20th of November. So it's got about another month or so. All right. There's NVIDIA, honorable mention. Another one, Netflix, just kind of, I didn't make a video over Netflix, but just absolutely monstrous after earnings. Just kind of wanted to put that out there. Who cares about this gap right now? It could have a cool off whenever it decides to have a cool off. It may want 800 before it does. But Netflix earned their keep there with an amazing earnings report. And they are just taking off to the moon. All right. Some other honorable mentions, and then I'll get you out of here in my sentiment as well. Let's see. Some other news. We got Tesla earnings coming up. So is building liquidity right here at the support at about 215, 216. So if it did not have earnings, that would be awesome for a nice risk to reward back on the upside, right? So some of you may be taking some chances on some pre-earnings positions. Could be a double bottom and wants to hold this, but we'll just have to see how Elon reports. And do we see Tesla back at 230 plus, or do we see it back down at 200, right? It could go either direction, right? Personally, I would love for it to fall so we can pick up the dip yet again instead of riding in between these channels up here. But we shall see. Another honorable mention, Apple, very strong today as well. Just one of those NVIDIA moves, just those grind hires moves, which I'm not a big fan of. But hey, if you got in early at 230, as long as it holds up 230, it's bullish, right? So now we've got 237 resistance. Does Apple want 240? We shall see. Does it do one of those NVIDIA moves, breaks all-time highs and takes that 240 spot? We shall see. But got to get above this 237.50 and ultimately 237. If not, then look for a bounce return back underneath that moving average at 235. If we get back underneath there, we could easily fill the gap if the market gets weak and go right back to 230, 231. You can pick up the bounce for calls or shares if you trade equity to return back to the upside. All right. Another honorable mention, Meta, right? Actually finally pulled back for once. Okay. It's now forming lower highs, double top here. Okay. Just want to keep an eye on Meta. Does it bounce back and bounce higher? And is this a big bull flag, or do we continue to form lower highs, another reject underneath 580, and then we come lower down to the lower end of the range? We shall see. We shall see. Now, here's how I'll sum up this video. If I go back here and I look at the fear and greed index, we always want to pay attention to that and our sentiment for the overall market, just to give us an idea. We're sitting in extreme greed today at 77, okay? And then it pulled back the market right into this 73 range where we've been hovering. Now, one thing I haven't shown on here is this put to call options ratio. Now, this just tells us who's in control, even if we're in greed. If the put to call ratio is above $1 or anywhere close to this 1.0, okay, then that is typically where the market begins to get bearish. Okay, so you can look right here back in October of 2023 when we were sitting up here in these ranges close to 1. That's when the market began pulling back pretty heavy. But anytime we're down here in these, lower ends of the range, that's when the market typically begins to build up steam to get very bullish. And that's where I could see a run back up into, that time frame of end of the year in that 600 SPY, 6,000 SPX, things of that nature. So put call ratio, pay attention to how this chart potentially moves. Anytime we're down here, what happened in the middle of July, right? We were extremely bullish right into August, and then we got up a little high here, and then we pulled back. August 1st was pretty heavy. So just look out for this put to call ratio periodically. I haven't mentioned that recently, okay? What else is going on? I think that's about it. One other thing is our bonds, okay? When our bond yields are getting a little bit high, that's analysts are showing right now that it's not making a difference at all, right? It's just something to be aware of. So anytime you see hedge funds, big money, billionaires moving their money into bond yields, moving their money into gold, silver, which are running right now, those are assets that are typically a little bit more stable, and you typically have a pullback slightly in the overall market. But right now what we're seeing, which is, again, an election year, we're seeing those bond yields grow, gold moving forward. We're seeing silver rising up. We're seeing the market also following suit when it's technically sometimes the inverse, right? That is typically what happens. We see a shift in momentum, right? Which we have seen with crypto recently, where we've seen a little bit more money flowing into the crypto markets, right? Whichever presidential candidate, which both are on the crypto side, it's just one may, have a little bit bigger response potentially. So that being said, I want to keep these updates and market updates short, sweet, to the point. To summarize this, we want to look out for, do we continue to get that selling pressure coming in at those resistances on the overall market? Does tech continue to run up? How does NVIDIA respond after a massive day today? And then we've got earnings coming up this week: Boeing, Tesla, American Airlines, Southwest, Lam Research in the semiconductor sector. So it's going to be a hectic but volatile week. We've got PMI on Thursday. Hey, I don't know. It's going to be wild. But if you have not done so, join our Leverage University. Please do so. The links will be down in the description. If you enjoy this video, gave you value, and it helps you looking at the markets differently and the economy differently, comment down below and say, hey, Brian, this video helped me a lot. If you're like, man, I don't know what in the world he's talking about, I've got some beginner videos on this channel as well. And then inside of our Leverage University, we've got trainings and one-on-one mentorship if you are that person that needs that little bit of touch, right, with myself personally. All right. That being said, peace, love, and blessings to you. I hope you, ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, and morning. Talk to you soon. Peace.